I'm Marie. Standing in front of the mirror on my wedding day, fixing my veil, I recalled my mother's last words to me, "Don't expect us there." It was a moment of clarity, a culmination of a long-standing struggle. I want to share this story, not for pity or to ask for understanding, but because it's a weight I've carried for years. 2 years ago, in early March, I was on a job site in the outskirts of the city. I'm a landscape architect, and my job is to create the illusion of natural beauty in commercial developments. That Tuesday morning, I was crouched near the edge of the site, taking notes on some plants marked for removal, when I heard the crunch of boots on gravel behind me. I looked up to see a man in his late 30s, named Ethan. He was wearing work clothes that clearly showed he was no stranger to hard labor. His hands, slightly curved from years of working with tools, spoke of a life spent in practical trades. He pointed out the birds in the trees, saying, "Those aren't just any birds. They're killdeer, Charadrius vociferus. They feign injury to protect their nests. If you start construction here before their young have fledged, you'll have a problem." I was impressed by his knowledge, and we exchanged introductions. He was in charge of the infrastructure phase of the project, and I was there to ensure the natural elements weren't destroyed needlessly. Over the next 2 weeks, we ran into each other several times on the site. Each encounter was a blend of work-related talk and a growing connection. One day, he told me about a drainage issue under the east lawn. The old system was installed backward. Whoever designed it probably never saw the site after a heavy rain, he said. I was skeptical at first, but he was right. He explained that he started as a plumber, and the principles of water flow are universal. Ethan asked me out to dinner that Friday. In my adult life, I've only brought 3 men home to meet my family. My mother, Mrs. Thompson, is a woman of high standards. The first man, a lawyer, was approved by my mother within minutes, but our relationship ended badly after 8 months. The second, a university professor, was deemed unsuitable by my mother, who always finds reasons to dismiss potential partners. I didn't tell Ethan about my mother's strict criteria. Instead, I shared with him my hopes, fears, and the complicated relationship I had with my family. He listened intently, not just waiting for his turn to speak, but actually remembering what I said weeks later and asking follow-up questions. 6 months into our relationship, Ethan revealed more about himself. One Thursday evening at his apartment, I noticed a print out of a Forbes magazine article face down on the table. He sat me down and said, "There's something I should tell you." I didn't hide it, but I wanted to wait until I was sure it wouldn't be the reason you're with me. After he told me, I sat in silence for a long time. It wasn't shock, the information wasn't entirely unexpected. What struck me was that it didn't change who he was to me. I started to think about a conversation I had with my best friend, Lily, a week before. She said, "You can't love people into being who you need them to be. You can only love them and see what they choose." I initially thought she was talking about Ethan, but as I drove home that night, I began to wonder if she meant my family. In early October, I called my mother to tell her about Ethan. "His name is Ethan, and he works in water infrastructure contracting," I said. There was a long silence on the other end. "Is it a stable field?" she asked. I replied that it was, and she said, "We'll see." The dinner at my parents' place in November was tense. Ethan arrived straight from a site visit, wearing jeans, a blue shirt, and work boots. He brought a gift basket from a local market. My father, Mr. Thompson, shook his hand in the hallway, sizing him up. My sister, Sarah, arrived late and gave Ethan a quick once-over. During dinner, my father asked about Ethan's work. Ethan explained that his company, Thompson Infrastructure Solutions, based in the city but working across the region, dealt with water infrastructure, including treatment systems and flood mitigation. My father seemed surprised when Ethan mentioned federal contracts. Sarah, on her phone under the table, said, "I was looking you up, and you barely have a social media presence." Ethan replied that he never saw the point. At some point, Ethan noticed a drainage issue in the back garden. The grass in the southeast corner is yellowing because of standing water. The pipe has a low point that's collecting water instead of draining it. It's probably been like this for a few seasons, he said. My mother acknowledged the problem, and Ethan offered to fix it in half a day. After dinner, Ethan left with Grace, not bothered by the cool reception. My mother and I washed the dishes, and she said, "He seems very earnest." I agreed, and she asked if I was serious about him. I said yes, and she expressed her concerns about my future. 3 weeks later, my mother called to talk about a neighbor's renovation and then, inevitably, about Ethan. She talked about career trajectory, connections, and the importance of making the right impression. I asked her what she needed to see from Ethan to approve of him. She listed a series of criteria that seemed never-ending. I realized that she had an ever-moving standard. My sister called a couple of days later. "A plumber, Marie? You have a master's degree," she said. I argued that my degree had nothing to do with Ethan's worth. She then laughed when I asked if she'd come to my wedding, saying she'd rather miss her own funeral. 40 minutes later, she texted me about Ethan's company having over 12,000 employees on LinkedIn and asked if that was a lot for plumbing. I replied that it was. I told Ethan about these conversations. He said, "You don't have to protect me from your family." I explained that I was letting them answer a question: if Ethan was just a simple plumber, would they accept him? He said, "Okay," and that one word held so much meaning: trust, support, and understanding. A week before the wedding, my mother called with an ultimatum. "If you go through with this, we won't be there," she said. I was in my kitchen, making tea. I replied calmly, "Then I'll see you when I get back from the honeymoon." My father called back later, sounding apologetic but unable to commit to coming. I sat on the kitchen floor, feeling a strange calm. The night before the wedding, I was in the hotel bathroom, alone. Memories of a past relationship came flooding back. When I was 16, I had a boyfriend named Jake. My mother sat me down one morning and said, "We are not those people." I understood what she meant and broke up with Jake. Sitting on the bathroom floor, I realized I was crying for the girl who sacrificed her happiness for her mother's approval. But then, I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, I've been auditioning for their love my whole life, and I've never gotten the part. I don't want the part anymore. On the morning of the wedding, there were tulips on the windowsill, which I'd cut from my garden. Lily helped me with my dress. She asked if I was okay, and I said, "I'm about to marry the best man I've ever met, in the most beautiful place I've ever worked on. I'm better than okay." The wedding venue was a garden I'd designed 2 years ago. As I walked down the aisle, I saw Ethan standing at the end, looking at me with an expression of pure love. His side of the aisle was full of friends and family, while my family's side had 6 empty chairs. Ethan had written his own vows. He said, "I've never needed anyone to know who I am, but I want you to know all of me. That's new, and it's because of you." I laughed, and so did the guests. After the ceremony, we went to the reception. During cocktails, a table started to wobble. Ethan noticed it, went to his truck, and came back with a tool to fix it in under 90 seconds. His cousin said, "He does that everywhere he goes." I knew I'd married the right man. We spent our honeymoon in the mountains, not far from the wedding venue. On the 3rd day, Ethan's phone rang. It was about a Forbes article that had just come out, titled "From Pipe Fitter to Pipeline King, Ethan Thompson's $2.3 billion Infrastructure Empire." The article was everywhere, and my phone started lighting up with calls from my mother, father, and sister. Ethan felt sorry, but I told him we did everything the right way. They had their chance to accept him for who he was, and they made their choice. 2 days after we got home, my parents showed up at our door. My mother was dressed formally and carried a gift bag. We sat at the table, and I told them I'd known about Ethan's company and wealth from the start. I asked them if they would have been at the wedding if he was just a simple plumber. My father finally said, "Yes." The way he looks at you made me think you chose well. It was a moment of truth that I'd been waiting for. My mother said, "We can try," which was a kind of honesty from her. I told them the terms for being in my life. They had to see Ethan as a man, not a headline or a balance sheet. They had to call me because they wanted to talk, not because of his newfound fame. My father said it was fair, and my mother agreed to work with it. My sister still hasn't reached out, but that's her choice. I've decided to focus on the love and support I have from Ethan and Lily. Sometimes, the bravest thing is to stop seeking the love that was never unconditional and to embrace the love that is right in front of you.